On this episode, we weigh in on some popular myths and misconceptions that people have about Bangkok.
So if you're coming here for the first time, or just like to ponder the nuances of Bangkok and Thai culture, you'll love this episode of the Bangkok Podcast.
Sawadee krap, and welcome to the Bangkok Podcast. My name is Greg Jorgensen, a Canadian who came to Thailand in 2001 and once spent a night sleeping on the floor of a third-class train from Nong Khai to Bangkok, which was so awful that the styrofoam package of rice I used as a pillow was the best part of the journey.
Ouch. Yeah. And I'm Ed Knuth, an American who came to Thailand on a one-year teaching contract 19 3/4 years ago, and I fell in love with fruit that looked like it came from outer space. So I never left.
19 3/4, hey, you're almost there.
That's right. August, baby. We want to say a quick thank you to one of our patrons, Luke Lien, who supports us at the show Shadow level. Stick around after we're done discussing some myths and misconceptions about Thailand to hear why I'm going to see if Greg can talk Luke into a WWE-style exhibition wrestling match next time he's in town.
Yeah.
I'd like to see that. Before we start, a huge thanks to all of our patrons who support the show. Patrons get a whole bunch of cool stuff, including our regular show a day early, behind-the-scenes photos and videos of our interviews, discounts on swag, which you can find on our website, and various other things that aren't available to regular listeners. But best of all, patrons like Luke also get an unscripted, uncensored bonus episode every week where we riff on current events and random topics. We just finished recording this week's bonus show, and we gave a quick update on the corona situation and the curfew, talked about my hardcore potato diet, and a mysterious and slightly unnerving email that Greg got instructing him to send someone $1,000 in Bitcoin, lest a secret video be released. Ooh. To become a patron, head to bangkokpodcast.com/support.
Yeah, that was a bit creepy, but all worked out well. No video out there as far as I can tell yet. Probably just a scam. Anyway, before we jump into it, I do have to mention a couple of quick things. First of all, we continue to put out some extra bonus material for our patrons. Most recently, a few days ago, I put out a fun bonus show that I did with our old buddy Scott Coates from the Talk Travel Asia podcast, and that was just me and him rapping about when we knew that Bangkok was our home and how if we think Bangkok is a safe city, and just sort of our adventures leaving and coming back and stories about living in here for so long. So it's always fun to do stuff like that, and we've got more bonus content coming up for our patrons to help everyone get through this crappy lockdown / quarantine we're all dealing with. And also, we should probably do a quick Corona thing. We mostly leave Corona for the bonus shows because, as I'm going to explain, we actually got a tweet from someone who said, like, hey, why don't you guys do a bit more like Corona-based shows? Like, you need to update people. People are looking for news and updates and stuff like that. And I explained to him that actually the shows, by the time most people hear them, are already a week old. Like, we record them a week in advance.
Right.
So any information or stuff we do about Corona is immediately out of date, and it just gets more out of date as time goes on. So it's kind of silly for us to do current events on a show that's not about current events.
Right.
So that's why
basically we don't know what's going to be true in 1 week from now.
Yeah, exactly.
so we don't want to talk about it too much.
Right. That being said, though, we should do a really quick update as we record this on 17th of April. The booze ban is still in effect. They seem, fingers crossed, to have gotten a hold of the daily confirmed infection rate, which seems to be stabilizing, although that can change very quickly, but it seems to be slowly coming down. Got about 25 new people a day now, apparently, over the past 3 or 4 days. And the lockdown is still in effect. Everyone's working from home if they can. But I think compared to some other countries in Southeast Asia, Thailand is not doing too badly. So, yeah, that's about all I can say about that right now. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's about right.
Yeah. All right. Well, on this episode, we are very much looking forward to the day that Thailand gets back to normal, which it will eventually. But we also know that this will mean that a bunch of newbies are going to be moving here to give life in the kingdom a go. So Ed and I thought that we'd discuss some common misconceptions about Bangkok, partly based on some of the questions we get from our listeners, with some commentary from our own experiences thrown in. And I think that Bangkok has actually got it's high on people's radar. It's got very high awareness for people all over the world. But I think there is a ton of misconceptions about it. One of them, of course, is that there's nothing to do except drink, go to bars and party, which is why we have this podcast to highlight how much awesome stuff there is here. So there's a lot of other ones that commonly get thrown around. So Ed and I thought we'd discuss some of the more popular ones that we think about and we hear a lot, and our thoughts on those. So Ed, you want to go first with one of yours?
All right, my first one is kind of a doozy, man. It's I don't want it to be misinterpreted, and it might be interpreted. It might be interpreted as a criticism of Thailand, and that's not really how I mean it. It's more, for me, it was something that it took me a while to figure out. So so for my first kind of myth or misconception, I'm really talking about what I used to think about Thailand before I got here. And then even that I still thought for a couple years, and it took me a while where I really, saw Thailand the way it really was, and it kind of changed my perspective.
Right. So
I think there's a misconception out there that Thailand is a very religious country because it's so kind of openly Buddhist. So I think Buddhism is associated with the country. Obviously, Thailand is a Buddhist country, depending on how you define it. I mean, 95% or more of Thais say they're Buddhist. There's temples everywhere. There's monks all over the place. Thai people are very respectful of Buddha images. They pray to Buddha images all the time. They make offerings. So if kind of that's what you mean by religious, then, Thailand is religious.
Right.
But for me, when I think of religious, I think of being like really pious and kind of following a lot of moral rules. And I don't know, to me, it's like I associate being religious with being like truly conservative. And I think that for me, I think there's a misconception. Thailand really is a very socially liberal country, with the exception that in public, they like to preserve a certain image that's conservative. Kind of the image of Thailand is we're a conservative Buddhist country. But the bottom line is that really is only an image. I mean, and I think in truth, Thailand is pretty just loose. I mean, drinking alcohol is extremely popular here in Thailand. I hardly ever meet Thai people who don't drink. I mean, it's
right.
I mean, some, but it's just people who say, "Hey, I don't drink." It's just not that big a thing here. Everyone knows that gambling is huge. It's illegal and it's underground, but everyone knows it's like absolutely gigantic.
Sure.
Underground casinos in Thailand, in Bangkok are huge. And plus, hundreds of thousands of Thais go across the border to Cambodia to gamble. It's also, I mean, we don't talk about this much, but, Thailand is one of the lowest successful marriage rates in the world. Again, depending on how you define a successful marriage. So it's got one of the last poll I saw, it was a few years ago, had Thailand had the highest infidelity rate of any country in the world.
Yeah, I can believe that.
And it was that they had split up the infidelity rate of men and women, and for men it was higher, but for women it was still like the third highest rate for female infidelity in the world. So it's just, it's again, we could do a whole show on like monogamy in Thailand or views about monogamy. But the bottom line is, when you look at the way Thai people actually behave, they are very respectful of Buddha images. They make sacrifices to Buddha statues all the time. And they abide by certain rituals, So if that's what you think it means to be religious, then I'll buy it. But so maybe what I'm saying is I feel like Thai people are not really pious. Is that the right word, Greg? What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's spot on. And the way I've often explained it to people is, and again, this is not meant as a criticism at all about Thailand. It's more meant as a criticism about religion overall. But I always used to say that Bangkok is not a Buddhist country. It's a country of people who claim to be Buddhist. And, one could say the same thing about Canada or America or any country about Christian. Like, America's a Christian country, but there's a lot of people there that certainly don't act like Christians. Even the people who say they're Christians don't act like Christians. So, yeah. And, this is summed up very nicely by a friend of mine who came here. And this was quite a while ago now, like 10 years ago now. But So, so things have changed, but not that much. And he said he was actually quite disappointed with Bangkok because he said it was just way too Western. He expected the scene to be much more, like you said, pious and devout. He expected sort of a much more widespread adherence to meditation and serenity and calmness. And, and instead it's just this insane chaos and people drinking and partying and gambling. And, you've got prostitutes outside at 2 a.m. kneeling in front of a Buddha shrine, which just blows your mind as a Westerner when you first.
But that's
come
it.
here.
I mean, okay. To me, I mean, you put it kind of perfectly. I mean, I think it's tricky. I mean, it's not up to us to define what it means to be Buddhist, and it's not even up to me to decide what it means to be Christian. Like, my attitude is if you say you're a Christian, you're a Christian. If you say you're a Buddhist, you're a Buddhist. So I'm really talking more about behavior. And so, I wasn't sure how to phrase this misconception, because it's just, when I think of people who are religious, like, I think of them who are devout, and being devout is more than just paying deference.
Right.
I feel like Thailand is a religiously deferential. They have reverence for temples, and they have reverence for Buddha images,
and great respect for Buddhism as well. I mean, they definitely have a great knowledge of it and stuff. But we're getting into sort of more of the analytics of religion here. But the misconception is that every Thai person will be a very strict adherent to Buddhist philosophy and follow the rules very strictly, but that's not the case.
Right. Yeah. I mean, in a way, it's, Buddhism is definitely part of Thai culture, but that doesn't mean most Thais are actually really religious or devout. To me, it's a little bit like, I mean, it's in its details, it's different, but it's just like many of my Jewish friends. Like, many of my Jewish friends are not religious at all, but they're very Jewish. Right. And it's like, Thailand's a little bit like that. It's like, Buddhism is just it's part of the atmosphere here. And my students do talk about being calm and stuff like that, but none of them meditate. I mean, like, when I do surveys, it's like, most of them have done, I ask them, have you ever done a meditation retreat for at least 3 days, like, outside of school? And it's it's like 1 out of 75. But whatever. I'm not trying to define what it means to be Buddhist. It's just what I mean. It's just that there's just a lot of what you would call socially liberal behavior going on here. Right. Whether it's drinking, gambling, infidelity, just especially in private, Thai people are pretty damn relaxed. Yeah. Let's just say that. All right, Greg, let's hear your first myth or misconception.
Well, this is one that I've worked on for a long time because, Scott and I talked about this on the bonus show that we released recently. And years ago, my very first job as a journalist was on a story that he and I worked on together where we posed as tourists and we went down to Wat Saket, the Golden Mount, close to Khao San Road on Ratchadamnon.
Right.
And we had, socks up to our knees and the map upside down and Hawaiian shirts on, like, we just cheesy as hell. And within 30 seconds of stepping off the boat, hey, my friend, where you go? The Grand Palace is closed. That whole thing. And I wrote a story about our adventure.
Right.
So I've always been kind of fascinated by the fact that so many people get taken in by these scams, whether they're gem scams or palace closed or just being approached by someone on the street saying, I don't have any money for a bus. Can you give me the money? And, right. And it's just, despite these warnings about these scams being printed in every guidebook, website, pamphlet, whatever about Thailand, people still just assume that Thailand is full of friendly people and there couldn't possibly be any scam artists here. And I think it's because of Thailand being known as the land of smiles.
To some extent, what you're saying should be common sense. People should realize, hey, just because Thai people are known for smiling a lot, it doesn't mean there's no criminals or scammers. But I think I know what you mean. I think people maybe get taken in by the hospitality of Thai people,
right?
And there are bad actors out there, like especially targeting tourists.
Sure.
Like it drives me crazy that I still see those scammers around. I mean, it's like obviously they must be paying off the police.
Yeah, I want to rush in all the time. Whenever I see them, I want to rush in and be like, "Yo, you're being scammed," but I know I'm going to end up floating in the Chao Phraya River if I do that too many times.
Right. Yeah, this is a weird misconception because I do think Thai people have a great smile.
Yes.
And I think that generally they're just nice and there's a lot of warmth.
Undoubtedly.
But especially if you look foreign, you will be targeted eventually. I know many people who've been the victim of pickpockets. The previous place I lived was we got robbed 3 times.
Wow.
We were located like near a construction site where there were a lot of like laborers. Even if the violent crime is lower than usual, there's a lot of petty crime, a lot of petty theft. So there's nasty Thai people out there, and who often target foreigners.
Right.
I'm presuming just because they think we have more money.
Well, you know what I ascribe this to? I think it's because of Thailand, the land of smiles. That advertising slogan has been so wildly, unpredictably, unbelievably successful that Thailand just sort of stumbled into this brilliant formula. Sort of like a diamond is forever. Thailand,
Right.
the land of smiles. And it's just been so successful, and it's been driven so deeply into the minds of travelers that they think like Thailand, the land of smiles. I couldn't possibly be ripped off by the friendly man on the street,
Yeah, I mean, I hope, it's funny. I think you're right. There are some people with this misconception, but I really hope it's not that widespread. I mean, it's just one of the basic rules of tourism, is just expect to be a target. It's just like I don't even travel that much compared to my friends. Most of my friends are these super travel experts and have been everywhere. But I know no matter where I am, it's like if you look like you're not from there, there are just annoying, selfish, bad people who will try to scam you.
Yeah. So yeah, land of smiles. Thai people are definitely friendly. They definitely smile a lot, but that's not saying that everyone here smiles all the time.
Yeah, definitely
Right,
true.
That was my first one. What's your second one?
Okay, my second one it's kind of going in a different direction than my first one, but trust me, they don't contradict each other. I mean, Greg, you might, I'm sure you're aware that I'm a very subtle and kind of nuanced thinker.
I prefer to call it nerdy, but
All right. Well, my second myth is this. I believe that if you did a survey around the world and asked people, when you think of Thailand, what's the first thing you think of? I've got my opinion of, there must be surveys. I have a feeling people are going to say Thai food first. I think they're going to say the beach second. And I think the third thing is going to be sleazy nightlife and prostitution.
yeah, I might switch around number 2 and 3.
Okay. I mean, everyone knows that Thailand has a reputation for sleaze.
Yeah.
But I think the misconception is that like all of Bangkok is sleazy, or even, believe it or not, I will even defend Pattaya. I think it's a misconception. People think that Pattaya is an absolute cesspool. And it's really not. I mean, by reputation, because there is a lot of this, sex industry there. There's definitely soys and streets, which are really sleazy. So Bangkok's definitely got neighborhoods or streets that are sleazy. But prostitution is not everywhere in Bangkok. It's not everywhere in Thailand. I mean, it's just, you have to know where to go. Like if you know where to go, then it's there. But Bangkok is just not that sleazy in general. And I don't even think Pattaya is sleazy in general. Like, probably 90% of Pattaya is very, very family friendly.
Yeah, I'm going to have to push back on that a little bit. There are pockets of Pattaya that I find nice and enjoyable, and we've discussed this before on the show, but I think generally, and it's not just like the fact that this street in Pattaya is not a red light street. It might very well be a normal shopping street, but it's just filled with freaks and weirdos, and it's kind of uncomfortably strange.
I don't think so. I mean, again, we could do a whole. I mean, did we do a whole show on Pattaya? I don't think we did a whole show on Pattaya.
Not a whole show. We've definitely talked about it in detail.
That's not a bad idea. I mean, really, Pattaya is a fascinating place, and it's definitely filled with, obviously there are sex tourists there. There are retired sex pats, whatever you want to call them. But I don't know, like, I've been there a couple times in the last year, and just like walking around during the day, it's a beach town. I mean, it's not super, super nice. Maybe enough parts of Pattaya is sleazy that you could call the whole place sleazy, but I don't know. There's tons of good restaurants there and tons of normal bars.
Yeah.
But my point is more general. I get, maybe Thailand deserves its reputation for prostitution, maybe based on numbers. I don't really know. I don't really know. Like prostitutes per capita, I don't really know. But the bottom line is, I do want to push back against this idea that Thailand is a sleazy country. It's not. I mean, remember we talked a lot about how Thai people are very concerned about appearances, and like in appearances, Thailand mostly appears conservative. Like outside of the red light districts. We've talked before about how like a lot of Thai girls would never like wear a bikini or post a bikini picture on Instagram. Now, if they're westernized, like a lot of my students do, because they're kind of international students, but like most Thai women, I think are more conservative in public.
Yeah, I remember a lot of times there's been times in the past where I've asked friends or girlfriends to translate like a dirty word or a phrase or something, and they won't do it. Or they'll look around like they're being watched. Like, okay, I'll tell you, but
yeah, it's very strange. It's a very interesting thing. It's just in general, Thai culture is not sleazy. It's a fine line I'm trying to make here. Like, I don't feel like Thai people are, like I said, I don't think Thai people are very religious. They're not. They're very relaxed, especially in private. But that doesn't mean that the scene is like decadent. I mean, it's really not. I mean, like the Thai middle class is pretty normal. Like Thai middle class isn't going to go-go bars and they're not part of that scene.
Before this whole shit show with Corona exploded, it's been months, probably over a year since I've had anything to do with the red light districts or the sleazy side of Bangkok. I'm just living my life. I'm hanging out with my friends. I'm being a family man. I'm riding my bike. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. But there's been zero crossover with any of Bangkok's sleaze, like even taking friends or something like that. So it's very possible to live here for a long time without dipping your toe into that at all, so to speak.
It definitely is there. It exists. But it's pretty well segmented off. Like there's just dividing lines. Like I think Thais are pretty good about that. There's just certain dividing lines. Yeah. I mean, they're like, legally they're not good at making lines that stick, but just like socially, socially there's some pretty clear lines. And most Thai people, I would say, are quite kind of proper, like in public at least. So it's just like it's just not a sleazy place. Mm. Like unless you go to a sleazy neighborhood, then it's sleazy.
Yeah. I would agree with that.
All right, man, you got one more?
Yeah, I got one more. And this is interesting. This is going back a few years now. And it was the first time that my friend said something to me and it made me look around and go, oh, yeah, you're right. Now, the reason that you and I love Bangkok, the well-stated reason that you and I love Bangkok, one of them anyway, is that it's just sort of this chaotic, noisy, barely controlled mess of dirt and grime and smoke and noise and sound. And that's what we love. We thrive on that chaos. But I remember probably about 12 years ago, I was with a friend who was visiting, and he was saying something about Bangkok, and he said, what's really surprising? I'm surprised how clean it is. And I was like,
oh, right.
I was like, what? And he goes, yeah, like I always thought Bangkok was really dirty. And like it would just be like this big, disgusting city, and it's really clean. And I thought, well, it is a big, disgusting city. What are you talking about? And then I started looking around, and I was looking on the ground, and I was looking at the street corner, and I'm like, actually, yeah, there's very little garbage here. There's street sweepers all over the place, like literal guys with brooms, And if you go down to some of the nightlife areas at night or something, there's huge piles of garbage. But that's going to happen in any big city in the world. But generally, I think that a lot of people think that Bangkok is this big, dirty city when really it's exceptionally clean for a city this big and disorganized.
Dude, I love this. Because I think you're right. I think I partly expected Bangkok to be filled with slums. Like, I mean, I've talked about it before, but when I came here, I knew nothing about Thailand, and I was just thinking like, oh crap, I'm going to a third world country. Right. I didn't know anything. I'm like, I'm going to a third world country. It's going to be so undeveloped. I knew Bangkok was a big city, but I really expected there to be kind of slums, and Bangkok does have its slums, but actually they're not. It's not like big piles of garbage, like you said. And I don't want to rip on the Philippines. I do love the Philippines, but driving around Manila, you just see huge piles of garbage. I mean, there's nothing. It's way worse than Bangkok.
Really, I've never been.
Yeah, it's way worse, way dirtier. I mean, there's super clean modern parts of Manila, but damn, just I mean, I think people who travel will second this. And so I think this is great. I agree with you, man. Overall, considering how big it is and the fact that there's like 12 million people here, and there's like sweltering tropical heat and rats running around.
Right. And the fact that there's no like metropolitan mandated recycling program, the fact that there's, like no, there's no effective, efficient method for disposing of trash,
Right.
all these things together, you'd think it would just be a disaster, but it's
Right.
not.
And I agree. It's not. Bangkok is a pretty damn clean city. I agree 100%.
Yeah. It's still got pockets of grossness. Sometimes you'll walk by a klong and it's choked with styrofoam and crap and stuff. But again, any city in the world is going to have that.
No doubt.
But overall, considering how unplanned and chaotic it is, it could be a hell of a lot worse.
Agreed.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's our two each, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Those are just some of them. There's many, many more. There's some of them that I was looking at. One of them was like all the ice in Thailand is dirty. That might have been true 20 years ago, but these days almost all ice you'll find anywhere is made in a factory.
But I think most people know that now. That's like an old misconception.
I don't know, man. I still see that question posed on, not like I browse forums every day or anything like that, but it still gets bandied around a lot. Some of the other ones are that, that you can get to a deserted island really quickly in Thailand, which is not the case. Like if you really want a solo stretch of sand, you really got to work at it.
That's probably true.
Except now, actually.
Yeah, right. Yeah, if you come during a pandemic, you can have a private beach.
There's probably like 9 people on Koh Samet right now.
Right.
Anyway, just some of our observations and some of the more common misconceptions and myths about Thailand that we've come across and we thought we could comment on. So good job, Ed. Let's give ourselves a pat on the back.
All right, I can do that.
Cool. All right, let's get into some love, loathe, or live with, where one of us picks a particular aspect of life in Bangkok, which we then discuss and decide if it's something we love about living here, loathe about living here, or have come to accept it as something that we just have to learn to live with no matter how we feel. This week it's my turn.
Cool.
All right, Ed, I got another straightforward one here for you. Very easy, but I'm gonna ease you into it. So I'm gonna slowly get to the phrase that describes this thing. But first, I'm going to start with one you probably won't understand. It's called Solanum torvum. Solanum torvum.
No idea what that is.
It's a bushy, erect, and spiny perennial plant used horticulturally as a rootstock for eggplant. It is also known as turkey berry, prickly nightshade, shushu bush, wild eggplant, pea eggplant, and pea aubergine. Now, if you eat a green curry, most green curries in Thailand, they have these things in them, and they look like a pea. They're about the same size as a pea. They're green, but when you bite into them, they're sort of like crunchy, and they have this mild little explosion in your mouth. You know what I'm talking about?
I know exactly what you're talking about.
That is Solanum torvum, or pea eggplant.
You want my honest answer?
Yeah.
I loathe them with a passion.
Really?
I detest them, and it was one of my very first negative things that happened in Thailand.
What?
It's literally
Man, I've stumbled onto a dark memory.
Those aubergines, like I just call them aubergines. I don't know why. It's like I probably had to look it up, and I think of them as mini eggplants or something.
Yeah.
But I hate them. I don't know what it is. I find their texture, like when you bite down on them, I just detest it. And I love Thai curry. I absolutely love curry. So when I got here, I'm eating all these curries. And, every time I got green curry, I'm just like, what are these damn giant peas? They're disgusting. And so it's literally up there. It might be, if you ask me, what aspect of Thai food do you like the least? That literally might be number one. I mean, there's, obviously now I don't eat meat and stuff like that. But I mean, just in terms of general... and luckily that aubergine doesn't show up in a lot of Thai food, but it is like a staple component of green curry.
Right.
Absolute loathe, max setting loathe.
Really? I love them. That's really funny.
Are you serious?
Yeah, dude. I just something about them. I love like crunching on them. They've got that little like.
Can't believe that. I thought for sure you were going to say you didn't like them. How could anyone like those things?
I never used to, because I never really knew what they were. I thought they were some like weird spice or something that wasn't meant to be eaten. When you eat like tom kha gai or tom yam goong, there's all that weird shit in the bottom, spices you're not supposed to eat. I thought it was part of that, but once I started eating them, I quite liked them.
Dude, those things are foul. They should be banned.
No, I'm gonna have to go love on those. I'll eat spoonfuls of them.
Wow, this might be our most extreme, different reaction, because you're kind of like a hard love on this one. It sounds like
I'm a hard love. I love them. They're nice little like surprise bites.
I'm loath to like the nth degree. Like just max it out. Whatever the maximum exponent is on loathing.
All right,
that's where I'm at.
There we go.
I don't know what it is. I mean, luckily,
man, you describing these sounds like me describing Brussels sprouts.
Right. To me, they're basically the same. Like I detest Brussels sprouts. Yeah. So, I mean, I actually had to learn what it is in Thai to ask them to leave it out of the green curry. So, of course, my pronunciation is horrible, but it's something like makua pung.
Yeah, makua pung.
Yeah. Yeah. My sai makua pung. So, listeners out there, you got to learn this expression. My sai makua pung. That means like not with aubergines.
No,
Keep
no,
the aubergines out.
No. What you got to do is you got to learn the phrase "pu makua puang," which means more of those things.
Dude, this is up there in one of the weirdest, most disheartening things I've ever learned about you, Greg.
I'm glad to be so unsettling. All right.
So as we mentioned at the beginning of the show, we'd like to say thank you to Luke Lien for lending us his support at the show shadow level. And Greg, what did you find out about Luke?
Well, actually, I got a note back from Luke, which was really nice to chat with him real quickly. Luke lives in Chicago, the Windy City, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I haven't been there, so I don't know. But he didn't really give me a lot to go on here. But he did mention something that makes me think that he and I would get along pretty well. He said he enjoys watching old 80s pro wrestling.
Wow, man. I grew up on some of that stuff.
Yeah, man. I used to run around the house pretending I was Hulk Hogan and pretending I was like British Bulldogs or Coco Beware. You know those guys?
That's great.
Yeah. So I have this extreme fondness for old 80s wrestling and stuff like that. So I thought maybe when Luke is coming back to Bangkok, he said he's hoping to visit Bangkok later this year when all the craziness ends, which I really hope happens. But I figured since we're going to have the meetup to end all meetups, that maybe me and Luke can put on like an exhibition wrestling match for charity or something like that. Like,
I would like to see that.
Yeah, I'll keep my quarantine beard going on, so it'll look even scarier. So, Luke, you play a character from the old '80s wrestling WWF, and I'll play a character. We come out and we can wrestle around a bit or something like that. People can place bets. But you know what's interesting about this is I got to Googling around about Thai wrestling. And Luke, check this out. There's actually this, as far as I can tell, there's this Facebook page called Gato Move Pro Wrestling, GATOH. And it says it's an official Thai/English language page for Gato Move professional wrestling promotion based in Bangkok, Thailand. And I read some blog posts on it. Apparently there's like this underground, very unknown pro wrestling like scene in Bangkok of Thai wrestling.
I've never heard about that.
I've never heard anything about it. Nothing at all. Now
we got to check that out, dude. We got to check it out.
Totally. But I went to this page and there seems to be like a lot of it seems to be based in Japan. Like there's definitely a lot of Japanese people involved here, and I haven't gone all the way through it, but it's definitely like this underground pro like wrestling scene in Bangkok, which I think would be awesome to watch. So
I'm with you, man. I will check that out.
Yeah, we'll go to a show if that's on or something like that. And Luke, tell you what, Luke, we'll look into it. If they have it in Bangkok, we'll all go out one night when you're in town. We'll go watch some wrestling, have some beers, and hopefully not body slam each other through the mat. But thanks for your support, man. Stay safe down there in Chicago, and we hope to see you here later this year when things, hopefully, fingers crossed, get back to normal.
Sounds good. Thanks, Luke. A final thanks to all of our patrons who help keep the show ad-free. Patrons get a ton of cool perks and the warm, fuzzy feeling knowing that they're helping support the show. Find out more by clicking support on our website. And connect with us online. We're Bangkok Podcast on social media, bangkokpodcast.com on the web, or simply bangkokpodcast@gmail.com. We love hearing from our listeners and always reply to our messages.
True that. You can also listen to each episode on YouTube. You can chat with us online, or you can reach out to me directly on Twitter, where I am BKK Greg. So thank you for listening, everyone. Wear a mask, wash your hands, stay inside, and we'll see you here next week.
For sure.
Well, as it turns out, I'm on the wrong tab. Okay.
Am I on the wrong tab?
No, I
you're-
am.
Oh,